And hold on, it didn't change the date. So what is all that? Oh my gosh. Okay, but I am on YouTube. So this is a good thing. So let me explain to everybody that is hopefully waiting so patiently on YouTube. Okay, yes, Doug is there. Society page is there. We've got Violetta. I cannot pronounce that name. Erin. T Bella V. Ryan. Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. I had this like technology meltdown at like 8:27. It was ridiculous. I got here early. I was so proud of myself. I'm all set up. Yeah. I thought this week is going to be different. This is when I just like, I know what I'm doing. And I go to get on, and I had all of these error messages pop up all at once. It was ridiculous. My internet, I don't even know what's wrong. Total chaos. I am using my hotspot on my phone, so I hope that it holds. I have my charger. I'm hoping that we're going to be good. So, oh, that's funny. Postmodern Cyberpunk says, you and I actually look like we could be sisters, and I hope someday I can show my face. Wow, that's crazy. She said, we're both Italian, we're both 2 years of each other, and we're both Leos. That's cool. That's fun. Yeah, you should send me a picture. You can email it to me. That would be kind of fun. If this stream is slow, it might be on my end because I'm having like major internet issues. So I just hope that the stream holds. So yeah. So before we get into everything, Nora's here, Diana's here, Lauren's here, Ryan's here, Alex is here, Phyllis is here. Lots of people are here. And Phyllis, before I forget, I believe it was you last week who made a donation, and I just got it. So I just want you to know that very much appreciated, totally not expected at all, but very much appreciated. So thank you. So before people are saying, oh, you look really beautiful. I have a fan blowing on me because it's about 90 degrees in my house, because when I do these live streams, I can't have my air conditioner on because it's too loud. So I normally just sit here and I sweat like a pig like the whole time. And then by the end of my live stream, I smell like a goat. It's glamorous, I know, but it is the truth. So tonight it is especially hot. So yes, I know. I call Beyonce, right? Yeah, I have a fan that's blowing directly on me, and so yes, the glamour of it all. But it's really because it's 90 degrees in here and it's sweltering without some sort of air. So before we get going, I just wanted to go over something that's been on my mind for quite a while now. I've been meaning to do a video on this. We have a gal in the support group, and this is not an uncommon thing, unfortunately, but there's a lot of people that go through this, okay, that go through narcissistic abuse, and you guys have probably been there as well, where they feel so incredibly low, where your whole life, you feel like your whole life is blown to pieces, and there's no point, there's no reason to go on. And it takes all your effort and your energy to try to move forward. And it can feel just absolutely overwhelming. And, our emotions can be just all over the place. And it's feelings of, and just fighting off the feelings of hopelessness every single day can really pull a person under. And that's a very real feeling. And it's something that I think a lot of us struggle with. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit here tonight. because I recently lost one of my patients to suicide earlier this week, and she was one of my favorite people, and it's tragic. So I feel like this is something that it's a very real thing, and I think it's something that we need to talk about as a community. So this is kind of what I call the 4 mindsets that I think are really helpful for people to develop. And for sure, if you're going through narcissistic abuse, but in life in general. And the first mindset is making this decision right here, right now, that you're not going to let what happened to you end your life. Even if you're feeling hopeless, even if you're feeling like there's no point in going on, even if you feel that you won't be missed, or that it doesn't matter, or that the pain is too much. Because this will pass. It really, really will. You will not always feel this low. Okay? I want you to know this. And to make the decision, please make it right here, right now, ideally in the comments, to say, you know what? I am not going to end my life over this. Because here's the thing with suicide, is it doesn't stop the pain. It really doesn't. It doesn't stop the pain. It just gives it to somebody else. Okay? So it's not an option. And I know when you're in that place, and I'm speaking to you, not only as somebody who's been through narcissistic abuse, but somebody that's really struggled with intense depression on and off their whole life. I was hospitalized for it twice when I was a teenager. So I know how low those lows can be. But take it off the table. Because it can be really easy to get caught up in our thoughts, and our thoughts are all over the place in something like this. Their thoughts are, like, how am I going to pay bills? How am I going to move forward? How am I, what does this mean? What does this mean about me? What kind of person am I? What am I going to have for lunch? And then your brain will go to, maybe I should just end my life. And it's just all of these thoughts that are all over the place. And it really does help to just rein it in. Just rein it in. And you can do that by making that decision right now to say, you know what? I'm not going to let this end my life. I'm not going to do that. There's so much power in just taking that option off of the table. Because your thoughts are still going to go every which way, but at least now you're not even flirting with that as a possibility. It's just totally off the table. And your mind doesn't have to, you don't get caught up in wondering, should I do this? Should I not do this? What are the pros and cons? Like, you're not even entertaining the idea. It's just completely off the table. So that's the first mindset. I will not let this end my life. Period. End of story. Okay. Second mindset. I will not let this destroy my life. And again, you might be saying, well, Dana, my life's already destroyed. I have nothing left. I have nothing left. Fair enough. I get it. I was there too. So, but there's stuff in our life, a narcissist can destroy our lives in many different ways. They can have a massive, actually, let me reframe that. They can have massive destruction in our life, in devastation, but it's up to us to make the decision to be like, you know what? Yeah, they caused a lot of damage in my life, but I'm not going to let them destroy my life. I'm going to take what happened, and I am choosing right now, even if you don't know how, even if you're like, Dana, I can't climb out of this hole. I have a lot of debt. I have a lot of sadness. I don't know how to start. All these people are turning against me. I don't know how to climb out of this hole. That's okay. You don't need to know how right now. You just need to make this decision. And again, this is something I would encourage you to do right here, right now, tonight. I'm not going to let this destroy my life, because just making that declaration, that's going to put your brain to work. And your brain is going to start trying to figure out how to problem solve that and how to make it not destroy your life. So that's the second mindset. And it might sound really simplistic, but I'm telling you from personal experience, this really, really does help. And I hope that this is something that you guys do too, okay? Okay, good. There's people that are posting this in the comments. Thank you. Yes, like this is the strength. Like this is the strength of making a decision. This is the strength of the community, and there's accountability in that. There's accountability. This is you finding your voice. This is you finding power and reclaiming your power and your control in your life by making that assertion, by saying right now, like, this is not going to end my life. This is not going to destroy my life. I am bigger than this. I am stronger than this. And I am a fighter. And here comes the third mindset. I will take what happened to me and I'm going to use this for my highest and greatest good. Again, you may be like, Dana, I am having a hard time even getting out of bed in the morning. I consider it a good day if I take a shower. My highest and greatest good, like I'm a million miles away from highest and greatest good. I'm lucky if I can shower or brush my teeth. That's okay. That's okay. Again, you don't need to know how. You don't need to know how you're going to do this. You just need to make that decision. And I guarantee you, it's funny. Life, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, these forces start aligning and they start making things happen. You start seeing things in a different way. So when you make that declaration of, I'm going to use this for my highest and greatest good, and sometimes that can be really, even saying that can be really hard to say. It can feel like you've got a big lump in your throat to say that. It might even feel like you're lying because you're like, I'm a million miles away from highest and greatest good. Making that declaration, it sets your brain on a path to work in that direction. And you're going to start finding, my guess is start finding within the next week, different ways that this can be working towards your highest and greatest good. So whether it's helping you to gain perspective, helping you become more of who you really are, because when we have a narcissist in our lives, we lose who we are. That's what narcissism is. It's just there's this black hole of their ego. It's this false self that's within them that just sucks everything into it. And a person cannot remain their authentic self and have a narcissist as a close person in their life. You're going to lose part of who you are. So that's a lot of the beauty, the tragic beauty maybe, and having our lives fall to pieces is we get to then decide which pieces we're going to pick up and rebuild with. And this time it's a conscious effort. It's not a life on default. It's not a life that you're building because your parents had expectations for you, or your culture had expectations, or your religion, or your gender, or your sexual orientation, or whatever. All of these outside influences had expectations, or that you felt like you had to play a certain role. Now, when everything is fallen apart and you've got nothing but debris around you, the power in that is conscious, concerted effort to rebuild your life into what you want it to be. And it's amazing. It really, really is. And again, speaking from personal experience, what I went through, I would not wish on my worst enemy. I really, really wouldn't. At the same time, it really, truly has been some of the best things that I've gone through because of the lessons that I've learned from it. And the lessons that I learned from it only came about through that mindset of, I'm going to use this for my highest and greatest good. And so every single time, and now granted, it took me a while to get to that place where I was okay with that. And this is definitely for sure not to minimize grief or sadness that people are experiencing. That's part of the healing process. It's totally normal and fine and healthy to feel like you're blown apart, to be incredibly sad, to not know how you're going to move forward, to talk about what happened to you over and over and over again, to rehash this. All of that's very, very normal. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay to feel the way that you feel. These mindsets are important because they just give you a direction in which to head. When you're ready, there's no pressure, there's no time frame. It's just knowing deep down inside of you, this is the direction that I'm going to head. The fourth mindset, and again, I think this is really where the magic happens. The fourth mindset is making the decision, I am going to use this towards the highest and greatest good of others. I don't know what it is about making that decision. And I encourage you guys to make that decision here tonight as well, even if you don't fully believe it. But that's really where the magic happens. Because I think so often it can be, we are motivated to do things more for other people than we are for ourselves. That may not be healthy, but I think a lot of us are really motivated to do that. So you can take what happened to you and you can use this if you have children, right? If you have friends, if you have people around you, if you go to church or you're in some sort of group, whatever, there are people that are watching you as you go through this, children especially. And so you can decide, you know what? Okay, this is an opportunity. I can role model how to handle a stressful situation, really like understatement, right? Incredibly stressful situations for my children. I can role model, here's how we handle sadness. Here's how we handle grief. I can use this situation to say, okay, you know what? Here's how we're going to open up our communication. Here's how we talk about our feelings. You can use the situation to bring a lot of positivity into the world, even though it might not feel like it. You can use the situation to encourage other people down the road once you feel, at a place that you have that strength to give. These situations you will become a lot more compassionate when you're on the other side of it. There's a lot of good that can and does come from these types of situations. There really, really is. So, yes, and people are talking about, moving forward and, okay, postmodern is saying, what happens when your child is beginning to perceive that someone is a narcissist? Use it to open up communication. Yeah. I mean, this is great. These are life lessons that we were not taught, right? So this is a great example to discuss that and say, okay, and you don't have to use the label narcissist, but you could say, narcissistic or selfish. So however a child would best understand that behavior, to say, that's really hurtful behavior and that really wasn't very considerate. And then kind of getting them to think about things. So, okay, what do you think would be a good way for you to handle this? And help them brainstorm. Okay, what are some ways that you can use this for your highest and greatest good? Maybe this is an exercise in boundaries. Maybe this is an exercise in kind of learning how to handle, difficult people, selfish people, high conflict people, dramatic people, problematic people, because they're there. They're a big part of life, just in general. So, So, okay, these are some ways that we can problem solve this. And Nora was saying mean is a good word that kids understand. And to realize, okay, I'm hurting, my child's hurting. Let's use this to try to open up communication as much as possible. Brainstorm, okay, how can I make this work for our highest and greatest good? Maybe we can use this to improve our communication. So maybe we could start having dinner together at the dinner table a couple nights a week, where we talk about things in like a very judgment-free way, where they're talking about issues at school or challenges at school, and maybe you're mentioning some challenges at work, and then you're kind of just going back and forth. Well, and now here's how this is a situation that I encountered, and here's how I handled it. Or here's how another coworker handled it. What do you think about that? Or how would you have handled it differently? Kind of getting them to brainstorm, teaching them what does it feel like? Because I think it's easier to pay attention to our feelings. What does it feel like when we have a boundary that's been violated? It feels like irritation and frustration and resentment and discomfort and anger. So kind of teaching children, especially, these are the messages that your emotions are trying to tell you. So our emotions aren't bad things. They're not things to run away from. They're things to embrace because they're messages for us. And once we get the message and adjust our behavior accordingly, those feelings tend to dissipate. So, pain, it's not comfortable, right? We all try to avoid pain, but there's a big message in pain, and pain is saying, don't do this, right? Like, don't touch the hot stove. Don't be friends with this person who is like a hot stove, but a person. Don't do this. This hurts. So if we can embrace that, this is why I say when people, again, I was there when they're like, Dana, I am in so much pain. I am in so much pain. I can't even see straight. It's hard when those feelings don't end, when it's 24/7 and it's so intense that you feel like you just want to climb out of your skin. Something that helps is to try to take a break from escaping that pain and instead to embrace it and tell yourself, okay, pain, I know you have a message for me. And oftentimes that message is, don't do this again. And so for me, whenever I was finding myself having those moments where I was, crying or intensely low or in a tremendous amount of pain, telling myself, okay, Dana, you know what? It has to hurt this bad for it to get through to you. Like that this is not for you. This situation is not for you. It has to hurt this bad for you to learn the lesson. And it really did, because it took that level of pain in order for me to be like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not even entertaining the idea of going back. So, I guess kind of having these conversations with kids, getting their perspective on things it's so huge. It's so huge. So that's what I really wanted to talk about tonight, about those 4 mindsets. And I will list them once the video goes live. I'll put them on YouTube, or if somebody wants to put them on Facebook, in the Facebook group, if you want to put those in the comments, the 4 mindsets. So somebody's watching it, they can kind of easily see them at a glance. But the mindsets are, I will not let this end my life. I will not let this destroy my life. I will use this towards my highest and greatest good. I will use this towards the highest and greatest good for others. That right there, those 4 mindsets, that's how you go from victim to survivor to thriver. That's how all of us move from this post-traumatic stress to what's called post-traumatic growth. And it's a real thing. and not just blowing sunshine. Post-traumatic growth is an absolute real thing. It's something that, interestingly enough, only happens from post-traumatic stress. It only happens from a traumatic situation. So there's a lot of power in this energy that's going on right now, in this whole flux, this transition period that you're in. So please know this. I know for me too, I didn't realize for a long time, for several years, that anything good could come about this. Like that, it had never crossed my mind. I just felt like, well, I'm going to have to learn to live with this, and I'm just going to be, I guess, I felt like damaged goods. Like, okay, I'm just going to be profoundly broken, and I feel like damaged goods. And I came across a website where the gal, lovefraud.com, where, yes, that was it. She had mentioned that she really felt that this experience was necessary for her personal, like, spiritual journey. And when I read that, I just thought, like, that was such a mind shift to be like, oh, this could be something positive. Like, this could actually be something that works for me. And that was huge. Just reading that was absolutely life-changing for me. So I'm not alone in thinking this. And there's a lot of people out there that have had these massive aha moments, not even like just like a few, like major aha moments from this type of a situation, where it will continue to reveal itself to you. Will reveal yourself to yourself. As you continue to heal, it's like layer after layer after layer is pulled back. It's just the most intense personal growth experience that you will ever go through. So I hope that helps. Good. Yes, Nora says this really teaches you about your self-worth. Yes. Little Miss says, I agree. I feel like this was the wake-up call I've been waiting for my entire life. And Wendy says, I found that major growth has come from major pain for me. No More says, yes, Dana, I thought I was broken as a man, but no more. Yes. Good. I love hearing the strength in this, because yeah, David says, I can relate to that, Dana, because in some strange way, I felt like this had to happen to me as a wake-up call. Yeah, because once you start, and it really took me, it took a lot for me to really wake up. And frankly, I feel like I'm just kind of even still like at the cusp of it. I feel like I've had a tremendous amount of awareness and personal growth and awareness, I guess, from this, but I still feel like I'm still at the very beginning, which is really, really exciting. But yeah, I mean, when you start realizing that kind of how we do something is how we do a lot of things. And if the vulnerability that we have, that this emotional manipulator was able to exploit, I mean, it shows us what that vulnerability is, so we can address it. It shows us how long we've had this vulnerability, which empty bucket we've been carrying around, and ideally how we can work towards getting it filled. It teaches us that, this whole sense of community that's out there. And there's a lot, I mean, this is, my community here, this community is only just a small slice of it. I mean, there's tons of groups on Facebook and out there on the internet, and it's growing more and more every day, which, is, it's tragic, but it's also very empowering, because the word is getting out and people are connecting, and there's power in that. There's power in the connections, because then we start meeting people that are a lot of times very like-minded with us, where I don't know how you guys feel, but I think I feel this way. I think a lot of people do, where you start looking around and you think, oh my gosh, where have you guys been my whole life? Because it's people that are, very like empathic and giving and compassionate, and it's it's just really, really cool that there's so much good that can come out of this. There really, really is. I love that. Sylvie says, getting to know me at age 60 is really an exciting and heartwarming process. I feel like I finally have a best friend, myself. Yes, I love that. I love that. And it is like when you realize, okay, yeah, you know, I can learn to love myself. I can learn to be on my side, right? And treat myself with value and respect and dignity, and know and have and be able to sleep at night knowing I have my own best interest in mind. And I trust my judgment, and I trust my value, and I trust, you know, that you're working towards a really positive direction. And that, you know what? Because it's not about perfection, it's about progress. So even if you veer off path and you find yourself with another problematic person in your life, to realize, you know what? That's okay. That's okay, because I'm human, and, these people are out there, and they can be hard, they can be difficult to see sometimes. And so I trust my judgment enough that, and I love myself enough, if I get caught up in this, that I'll be able to walk away when I start seeing the problematic behavior. And not, not judging, not shaming ourselves, just realizing, you know what, I'm not perfect. I'm doing the best I can do with the information that I have, and that's all any of us can do in this life. I like that. Yeah, lots of great comments here. Let's see. Oh, I like that. Trisha says, I don't like the word perfection. I like to strive for excellence. Yes. Lauren says, I'm struggling with the fine line between strength and cynicism. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I can give my take on it, but I'm not sure if that's what your take is. Wendy says, there will come a time when we'll be grateful that this happened, not only for personal growth, but how we will be able to help new people just realizing this has happened to them. There's a lot of power in that. I think one of the hardest things about life is that is our expectation of it, frankly. Because we all have this expectation. I don't know if this comes from movies, from TV, from what we think other people's lives are. This idea that life should be a certain way, that we should be married by a certain age, that we should have a job that pays X number of dollars, that we should have a house and a picket fence and 2.5 kids, and a labradoodle, and that our life should look like this. And if it doesn't, then we feel cheated, and that we should live to be 85 or 105, and that we should die in our sleep, and it's peaceful and everything is just great. Well, that's not realistic, and that's not how life goes for the vast majority of people. And I think getting rid of that delusion maybe, of what life supposed to look like, and embrace the life that we do have. Because there are no guarantees. There are no, it really almost sets us up to fail if we're having these expectations that it should be anything other than what it is. And what it is oftentimes is just, it's circumstance. It's really kind of what we make of it that determines what it is. So yeah, there's just so many variables out there, and this is for sure not to, minimize what anybody's going through, because the pain of this is very, very real. So a lot of this talk, it might, really upset somebody, depending on kind of where they are in their healing. But hopefully, if you're fresh out of a relationship, you're feeling nothing but anger and rage, and you're having a hard time functioning, just know that that's normal. It does pass. And to try to not feel re-victimized or hurt by what I'm saying, but to try to realize that I'm trying to come from a place that's empowering, and that you are the way you feel is totally valid, and it's okay to be where you are. There's no time frame for moving forward. It's whatever feels right for you, and there's a lot to process, in these relationships. So okay, let's see. I'm trying to find this comment. The fine line between strength and cynicism. Comment. I'm scrolling through the chat real quick here. Okay, she says strength in that I'm very hyper aware of red flags now and of taking my life back. But cynical, thinking that there are truly no good people out there, that everyone has an agenda and I don't even want to try. Okay, makes total sense. So there, yes, there's a lot of problematic people out there. And I think too, if you realize everybody has an agenda. Everybody does. So it's how they're filling that agenda, I guess, is kind of when stuff becomes problematic or not problematic. This kind of goes back to the whole empty buckets thing, right? So real quick, as a recap, we have these these buckets that we're born into this life with. We have the bucket of physical needs, we have the bucket of emotional needs, and then we have the bucket of stability. So the bucket of physical needs are, food, clothing, shelter, kind of basic physical needs. Bucket of emotional needs: love, acceptance, understanding, importance, significance. The bucket of stability is just the stability, the reassurance that these other two buckets of physical needs and emotional needs are going to continue to get met. Everybody is going through life, generally on a subconscious level, trying to get these buckets filled. Every single thing that we do in our life is to meet those needs of those three buckets. Everything. So whether we're aware of it or not. So, at a very primitive level, a person, back, way back when, like, you would, hunt food because you needed to eat. You would, seek shelter or clothing so you wouldn't, get hypothermia or wouldn't get really bad sunburn, or then, like, the emotional needs. This is kind of where we get weird as a society, because we're doing these things to try to meet our emotional needs, but we're doing it in weird ways, and a lot of it has to do with marketing. So we have, somebody might buy a really expensive car or a really fancy watch because it makes them feel important. It makes them feel significant. They might not be consciously aware of it because marketing is really, really good. But if you look at the ways that marketing works, it appeals to fear, lust, anger, greed, or sympathy. That's how marketing works. And, it provokes those emotions in people, and so that people will go out and they will buy things. If a person's getting those needs met in a healthy way, they're they're doing it in a way that's empowering to them, and it's a win-win situation. Like, it's empowering to them, it's empowering to other people. If a person's doing it in an unhealthy way, then it's highly manipulative, and they're doing it in a way that's generally disempowering to other people. So I think it can kind of help to just realize, you know what, we're all trying to get these same buckets filled, and that's everybody does have an agenda. That is their agenda, and that's okay. We just have to watch out for people that are being manipulative and trying to get their buckets filled in unscrupulous, manipulative ways. So, and the only way that we can tell if a person's being on the level or not is with time, consistent time, and watching their actions over a period of time. That was kind of a long-winded answer, but and I'm going to keep going, so I just get comfortable. But so, we're all trying to get these needs met, and when we go through a relationship, a narcissistic relationship, what you're describing, these feelings of hypervigilance, of paranoia, of intense distrust, of wondering, is there anybody out there that's just a good person? Feeling that way, even though you can, I get it. Like, I have been there too. It's really unsettling to feel that way. But that's actually a very normal feeling for going through something like this. Because when you've experienced somebody that's highly manipulative, it completely rattles your faith in your judgment and in other people, and taking people at face value, and all of that. It really shatters all of that. And it'll make you realize, okay, it's very eye-opening. Wow, I just did not know that people existed like this. And if maybe I did know that they existed, I thought I'd be able to see them. I thought I'd be able to spot them coming. And so it's very eye-opening and very scary to think I didn't see this person coming at all. In fact, not only did I not think, not only did I not see them coming, I thought that they were my best friend. I thought that they were a soulmate. And that'll mess with the person's head for a while. And that's normal. So all any of us can do are and I think to realize too, there are really good people out there. There really, really are. Like, there really, really are. But in order to tell kind of the fool's gold from the gold, you just have to go slow. And time will tell. Time will show you who a person's character and who they really are. But I totally get that feeling of, am I being hypervigilant or am I being realistic? So when you're feeling that way, it does help to really, frankly, it helps to not, to go slow with people, friendships, dating, anything, for a while until you really have trust in your judgment again. And that can take a while. So, because what happens is when we experience something traumatic, we tend to want to do the opposite. Makes total sense, right? So if a person is in a car accident, they might be terrified to drive, but they might be okay with taking the bus to work or walking to work or taking a train. Very similar to abusive relationships. If you experience an overt narcissist who's, kind of like that guy or like that girl who's just really over the top, very obviously problematic, very selfish, very self-centered, very just full of themselves and difficult, and, there's like sandpaper. They're just kind of got that personality. They can be very charismatic, but they can be very, obviously more obviously problematic. For people that are in relationships with those kinds of overt narcissists, it's very normal for them to want to do the exact opposite. So what tends to happen is the next relationship that they tend to get into is with a covert narcissist. So these are the narcissists that are incredibly charming. They're very likable. They're, they also tend to be very charismatic, and they're kind of they're the wolves in sheep's clothing. So you have the overt narcissists, which are the wolves in wolves' clothing, and then you have the coverts, which are the wolves in sheep's clothing. And so when they experience a covert narcissist, they tend to feel really discouraged and very, very depressed, and very confused. How can this person possibly be a narcissist? They're very compassionate, they're very giving, they're very kind most of the time, but when they have bad behavior, they really have bad behavior. And so that can mess with them for a while, especially if they've been experiencing an overt narcissist, because the covert narcissists are not even on their radar. And that's the other problem with covert narcissists, is they come across like Prince or Princess Charming. So not only do they not register as problematic, they register as everything we've been taught to look for in a partner, which is really terrifying. So this is why it just takes time to get to know somebody, because those are all masks that they wear, and those masks do fall off over time. So it's the same thing with a person who is in a relationship with a covert narcissist. They're terrified now of charming, likable, funny, kind of people, and they tend to gravitate towards more overt narcissists, because maybe on a subconscious level they're telling themselves, well, this guy's a jerk, but at least I know he's a jerk. I know what I'm getting into. Versus this person who I thought was Prince Charming and ended up being a total nightmare. So it's really important to just go slow. Time will show you everything that you need. And not only time, but paying attention to how you feel. If you're starting to feel confused, if you're starting to seek input from outside people, if you're starting to say, is this weird? Like, is it me or is it him or her? Is it me or is it them? We tend to not ask for input when we have clarity. There's a saying out there that goes something like, advice is what we ask for when we know the answer but wish we didn't. And I love that. I love that quote. There is so much truth in that. Because deep down we do know. We do know if what we're experiencing is strange or somehow problematic. So go slow. These feelings of hypervigilance, they do tend to calm down with time. It's your brain's way of trying to keep you safe, is what it is. It's that fight and flight mechanism that's going off. So it's there, but it's okay. Let's see, Mika says, I confronted my ex-narcissist of his addiction with porn and sex, and he was straight up in denial. How can I get him to see that he needs help? He should now. Oh, and he's a psychologist. Well, you can't. That's the hard thing, is we can't get anybody to see their problem. Only they have to hit rock bottom. So a lot of AA, NA type groups, when you're dealing with somebody that has an addiction, us telling them, hey, you've got a problem, hey, this isn't normal, if they're not motivated to change, they're not going to change. So to us, that might be a huge problem, but to them, if it's not a problem to them, then they're not motivated to change it. And to them, it's not a problem. So all we can do is just, move ourselves to a place where their destructive behavior is not negatively impacting us. That's all any of us can do. And, if you want, I don't know if I would do this if this person's also a narcissist. I think I would just, and he's an ex, I would cut contact and, that's wish him well, but that is not, you cannot say, you can't, none of us. It's not healthy if we're putting ourselves in a situation where we're sinking ourselves to save somebody else. Especially when you're dealing with somebody that's highly manipulative and has a lot of problematic behavior. And these people, narcissists, other types of emotional manipulators, they exist, and they are in all walks of life. They are in all different types of professions. They're, it's hard for us to think like, oh, you have a person that's a narcissist or a sociopath that's a therapist. Yeah. And they can be a judge or an attorney or a doctor or the postman or, a teacher, you name it. They got to work for a living too. So they are out there. Just because a person has a degree in a certain field doesn't mean necessarily anything other than they have a degree in a certain field. Therapy being one of those fields. I think we can all say this. We've met a lot of different people in every field. I mean, I've met attorneys where I used to have a rental property and I was renting it to a real estate attorney, and she was awful. And we would argue about the contract, her lease agreement. And she was a real estate attorney and had no concept of what a legal and binding agreement was. It was ridiculous. So it's the same. Like there's good and bad people in every single profession. I shouldn't say good or bad. There's degrees of like incompetence and competence in every single profession. And I think a lot of people, myself included, for a long time, had this idea that if a person's a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, that they have this extraordinary, self-awareness or kind of intense, level of like skill set of self-awareness, but they don't necessarily. Some of them are amazing, but a lot of them aren't. So you can't change somebody unless they're ready, willing, and able to change. And even then, they still have to change themselves. We can't do the work for them. So, okay, this is a great comment. Solution asks, it is such an isolating feeling that I was the only one my female narcissist treated poorly and will treat everyone else better. Is that a normal feeling to have? Yes, it's a very normal feeling to have, and it's generally not true because they're the common denominator in this. And that's the thing with narcissism. It's selfishness, right? It's selfishness to a really problematic degree. So if a person is incredibly selfish, it's all about them. That is the core of narcissistic abuse, is you've got a person who is causing damage and destruction, whose selfishness is causing damage and destruction to other people, whether they're exploiting other people or just neglecting other people or abusing other people. That selfishness comes out in many different ways, but at the end of the day, it's highly problematic degrees of selfishness that's the problem. And with kind of, again, like how we all do something is how we do many things. So wherever your ex goes, she takes herself with it. So it's her behavior that's the problem. It's not you, it's not your relationship. if that's how she's wired, if that's her behavior is going to go with her wherever she goes. But it's very, very common, and a lot of times they'll provoke that, right? So they'll make it seem like, you know, that we're the problem. So that we could have had this amazing relationship, but it was something within us that they couldn't handle. So that's why they treated us like garbage and discarded us the way that they did. That's not the case, because normal, healthy people don't ever act like that. It's very immature to treat other people like that. So, you know, my guess is that's not the first time she's done this. It's not going to be the last time she's done this, because people don't just like start treating others like that. You know, that's kind of how they treat people in general. So, but yeah, it's very common. And of course, they will often do things on social media where they will put up all these pictures that they're so happy and well adjusted and they love their new life. And that, when you do see that, because that's more, you know, common than not, there's two reasons for that. So in part, what you're seeing is the idealized phase of the next person. Okay. And the other side of that coin is that you're seeing it's still part of the devalue and discard that you went through. So it's the narcissist is that's kind of killing two birds with one stone by doing that. There's a lot for them to be gained, and then of course saving their public image with other people and creating flying monkeys. And there's lots of stuff that's going on when they're doing that. But to the person that's just been so cruelly discarded, it really feels like, oh my gosh, they are going to go find their happily ever after. You know, they've already found love and happiness and everything that I wanted, and they were so quickly able to find this with somebody else. There really must be something wrong with me. But the reality is, normal, healthy people do not move on at breakneck speed like that. Ever. Like, that's never ever healthy. It's a sign of either loneliness, or it's a sign of, you know, clingingness, or you know, of an emotional manipulator, or there's other stuff that's going on that's driving a person to move so quickly. But that's not coming from a place of like healthy behavior. So don't let that intensity and the speed that they've moved on reflect on you in a negative way. Or don't misinterpret that thinking that they're, you know, moving on to find love and happiness, and that they're just leaving you in the dust, because they're not. Their next relationship, odds are, is going to run the exact same course that yours did with them. That's how these things go. True Love says, Dana, is it normal to feel broken, like you'll never be okay to be in a normal romantic relationship again without exhibiting any type of PTSD symptoms to your new partner, like being extra emotional because of the discard from the ex? Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it's normal to feel that way for a time. And it's normal, I think, to have, there's going to be some residual stuff there, because you went through something traumatic. So I still find myself kind of second guessing people and wondering if they have an agenda, you know, if they're being on the level. But when I feel that way, I then tell myself, it's okay, Dana. Like, it's okay. You're going to go slow. You're going to see things eyes wide open. And if you see problematic behavior, you're going to distance yourself. So it's okay. And then that way, I don't get discouraged. I don't get really worked up if I do see problematic behavior. So doing things like that really helps to remind yourself that you're in control, that you're in charge, and that you're going to do what you can to as much as you can to keep yourself safe. With I don't feel broken anymore. I think if anything, at this point in the game, I feel very empowered. Like I feel like I see reality and people for what it is. Whereas I feel like a lot of people, like the vast majority of people out there, are kind of walking around asleep. I know that might sound really arrogant, and I don't mean it in an arrogant way, but when you, I think you guys know what I'm talking about. When you experience emotional manipulators, when you really see the red flags, when you see stuff for what it is, you're not, you're being rational, and you start realizing that a lot of people out there are being rationalizing, and that they're making excuses for problematic behavior, and like that they still don't see things kind of for what they are. But so at this point in the game, I feel really empowered. It's exciting. It's discouraging because then you really do realize that there is a lot of problematic people in the world, and then kind of trying to balance that, because obviously nobody's perfect, right? But that doesn't mean that just because nobody's perfect that abusive behavior is okay. So it's kind of finding that line of what kind of issues am I willing to take on in another person. And I've mentioned this before with deal breakers. So like my deal breakers are any form of abuse, addiction, adultery, or attitude, meaning like a negative attitude, or how kind of their overall treatment of me and of others. So those are my deal breakers. Certain other things might be more workable than others, but going slow. I am not extra emotional at all about what I went through. And I again, like I'm several years out of this. I have had a lot of time to heal and to really understand what happened. And I think a lot of this goes to the mindset of I'm going to make this work for me. When I developed that mindset, that really did shift me from kind of survivor to thriver. And so I don't regret at all what happened to me. And had it if it hadn't have been Steve or Jack, it would have been other people. Like it would have happened at some point because I had this vulnerability. They just happened to be there, and they exploited it. But because we all know now there's no shortage of these people that are out there on the planet, it would have just been other people had it not been them. So I guess kind of seeing it in that way made me realize that it helped me to reduce the anger in a way, because it was just sort of like that's who they are. Like they manipulate and they exploit people, and they had me on their sites, and they did what they do, and I didn't realize that. I didn't know about covert narcissism. I just did not see them coming at all. So but they were able to exploit vulnerabilities that I had since I was a little kid, and that the gift in that was that I had to get those addressed, and I don't think I would have had those brought to my attention in any other way than by going through what I went through. So because I look at what happened to me, again, being where I'm at in the healing process, this does take time, and this is not something that you need to jump to tonight. But when I began looking at it as, okay, there's in all of this hurt and heartache and pain and trauma, there are gifts in this. There are things that I can get out of this. So because I was able to get as much out of it as I possibly could, and I'm still like continually getting gifts out of it. And I think you guys will too over time. because I look at it as something almost positive, that's something that needed to happen. I don't have any, like, I don't have a lot of that anger and that animosity there. And it was so funny driving home from work today. I don't even know what made me think about it, but I was stopped at a red light and I even said, I'm like, dear God, thank you so much for removing Steve from my life. Like, I am so thankful that he discarded me, that everything happened the way that it did. And I shudder. I shudder at the thought of, like, what I would be tangled up in had he stayed. So, um, I think my issues with a new partner is, but I wouldn't even say that. Like, to me, it's all about healthy boundaries and kind of knowing what I'm comfortable with. So maybe early on, I kind of felt like I need to move slow. And I'm not okay with saying, I love you right away to somebody. I'm not okay with sleeping with somebody right away. I'm not okay with a lot of things. And I really worried that maybe that would scare somebody away. But then I kind of realized, well, then so be it. Like, that's okay. If that scares somebody away, then they're not right for me, because these are my boundaries and they're not negotiable. So if they leave because of that, then it's just confirmation that they're not right for me. Like, I don't waste any time worrying or second guessing about any of that. So, the healing really does come from, I think, embracing the emotions that are in that PTSD. Realizing too that all of your emotions are, like, they're coming from within you. So they're chemical reactions that your body is creating, that your brain is creating, designed truly for your highest and best good. Like, all hippie woo-woo-ness aside, like, that is true. Like, that is the main goal of your brain, of our brain, of the human brain, is to keep us safe. It's to keep us away from danger. And it does that by, sending out chemical signals of, when it perceives danger. You've got the different defense modes, like fight and flight, and our brains are, like, doing all of this stuff. It's just fascinating. Obviously we're not aware of it, but it's doing that. So what we're calling PTSD is really, it's the fight mode. It's a defense mechanism. And so our brain, when we went through a traumatic situation, we have this defense mode that goes off. It's the fight mode. Totally normal. It feels awful, but it's totally normal. And what makes this complex versus, standard PTSD is, standard PTSD, there tends to be a very specific cause and effect, right? So you've got a soldier at war, they hear gunfire, they hear a loud noise, they drop to the ground. Cause and effect. They come back home after war, they hear a car backfire, they drop to the ground, they're shaking, they're sweating, they're full of adrenaline, they can't seem to, their brain has a hard time letting go of that fight response. It's now almost become instinctual. So but it's because their brain, this is what happened. Like, the brain links up incorrect cause with incorrect effect. That's kind of the core of PTSD. So I think what helps with a lot of it is bringing awareness to it. So let me back up a little bit. The complex part, for those of you that are not familiar with complex PTSD, is it tends to not come from, like, a specific cause, or it's more of, like, an emotional cause. So when you have an abusive relationship, it might not be that one event, right? Like war. It might be an ongoing psychological abuse. That's probably a good example of complex PTSD. So you've got this ongoing gaslighting, the grinding down of a person, the subtle, covert forms of abuse that are going on. That a person, most of us, right, we were not taught this in school. We know that something's off and something's wrong, but we're not sure if it's us or if it's them or if we're being too sensitive or what exactly is going on. And so, we're slowly being diminished. We're being engulfed by their narcissism. So we're not recognizing that this is necessarily problematic until this relationship ends. And then when it ends, we find ourselves in feeling hypervigilant, feeling on edge, feeling anxious, feeling broken, feeling like nobody understands, wanting to isolate. Our sleep patterns are interrupted. We might be having night terrors, or we're waking up in the middle of the night screaming or crying and not really knowing why. Having a hard time trusting other people. That's all very, very normal if we experienced a highly problematic person who caused tremendous amounts of damage in our lives, and our brain is trying to sort out what on earth happened and what it needs to stay away from next time. Because again, like a lot of us tend to link up incorrect cause with incorrect effect. So we might tell ourselves something along the lines of, especially if we're not aware of the different forms of abuse and kind of what was going on, and that we weren't the problem, because a lot of us were told that we were the problem. If we're linking up incorrect cause and effect, we might be thinking to ourselves, well, I'm never going to date an accountant again, or a CEO, or a police officer, or a redhead, or or I'm never going to meet somebody online again, or I'm never going to go on a blind date again, or I'm never going to meet somebody at a dance club again. So while there might be some validity to that, like certain places are probably not the best at meeting people, but it's the behavior that's problematic. It's not because you met them online or at a dance club, or because they're a CEO, or because they're a bartender, or because they're a redhead. Those are kind of just peripheral things that these people had in common, but it's what our brain will link up of, this causes pain, especially if we've experienced it more than once. So if a person if you're dating people and you have several bad experiences with, I don't know, like Pisces, right, or Scorpios. It's really common. People are like, you know what, I'm done. Like, I'm not dating any more Scorpios. Well, Scorpios aren't necessarily the problem. It's the problematic behavior that's the problem. So the point of this is, what really helps with CPTSD is linking up correct cause with correct effect. So linking up the problematic behavior is the problem, therefore I need to be aware of problematic behavior and steer clear of it. Now, this isn't to say that you or anybody else needs to go watch the Red Flag series a dozen times. We all know, even without watching that series, we all know what problematic behavior is. We know because of how it feels. But somewhere along the lines, and I don't know how or when or why, we as a society quit teaching people, ourselves, I don't know, ourselves, children, what have you, about our kind of natural instincts, which really are our emotions. So, we experience these feelings that something's off, or fear, or distrust, or all of this. It's sort of like, if you can imagine any other animal, a cat or a dog, or you name it, where they just all of a sudden quit having instincts. How strange, how messed up their life would be, because they have no internal GPS that says, you know, this is how you check out another dog. Like, this is how you interact. Like, these are the signs that another dog wants to play or that wants to fight, or, you know, this is how you feel when you see another animal that wants to engage with you in a certain way. Human beings were not taught that, and so we're missing like a huge chunk of what it means to be human, but what it means to interact with other humans. So learning like paying attention to how you feel. Somebody had mentioned this earlier, and I had mentioned this I mentioned this a lot in previous videos, but paying attention to how you feel. So going towards things, people, places, things, experiences that register on like an emotional scale of 0 being ice cold, like things that turn you off completely, to 5 being kind of lukewarm, to a 9 or a 10 being like, that's the zone, like that's where you feel alive, that's where you're like happy and you feel bliss and you feel clarity and you feel contentment and you're like, yep, that's it, like that's where I want to be. That's kind of your emotional GPS, and to steer into that. So if you experience problematic behavior, asking yourself, where do I feel kind of along this emotional scale? Like, because I mean, if you think about it, looking hindsight being what it is, right? We can look back and be like, I felt like something was off, or like, there's feelings that we feel, but we tend to gloss over them. So if we can quit glossing over them, and if we can see them for what they actually are, and realize that all of those feelings are not bad, that they all have a message for us, and if we can take the message out of the feeling, then we can really start to get some forward momentum. But it's weird because as a society, we're not wanting to do that. We're wanting to just medicate our emotions away. We're feeling depressed. We're like, okay, we need to take a pill for that. We're feeling anxious. Okay, we need to take a pill for that. If we're feeling, overwhelmed or, whatever, it's weird. Like, as a society, we're trying to address these issues kind of from a top-down approach instead of like a bottom-up approach. So top down would be like, okay, you're feeling depressed. Here, we're going to take some medication so you don't feel depressed. If the bottom up approach would be, okay, you're feeling depressed. Like, what's going on? What's going on? Because depression is generally a signal of that something needs to change. Something long standing in your life needs to change. So, like, seeing the signals for what they are. Same thing with anxiety. If you're feeling really anxious, okay, instead of just, coping with pills, what's going on that's making you feel anxious? And addressing those more core issues. This isn't to say that there's not a time and place for medication. I for sure think that there is. And when a person especially is fresh out of a narcissistic relationship, medication, like, it can really get a person through, so, but just kind of know, like, even if you're taking medication, you can still kind of work on the core stuff there. Oh, cool. Kevin says, today was his second yoga class in a row. It was super therapeutic. I'm so glad I was able to do it. I plan on keeping it going too. Yay, that's awesome. Good for you. I'm glad. Yeah, yoga is super chill. Yeah, Sylvie says, so true, Dana. Depression and anxiety are the signals I ignored. Yep. There's a saying out there that hold on a second. There's a saying out there that if you have anxiety or depression, to first look around and make sure that you're not with a narcissist. And I remember when I first saw that meme that was floating around on the internet, I thought, is, you know, I thought that was cute, but I didn't see it as profound as it really is, because it's very, very true. Feeling chronically anxious, feeling chronically depressed is not normal. It's a sign that something's off. And if generally, if we're continuing to feel that way, it's because there's a continual, constant thing in our life that's causing this. So it's worth kind of examining how we feel around other people and see if we need to make some changes. So yes, Marielle says, before you blame yourself, check the people around you. Yes. Lisa says, very true about the hindsight. It's all so clear now. There were signs. My gut was off at times. Stress levels were through the roof. In the end, my hands would tremor in his presence from my nerves. Sylvie says, I finally realized that I was going to die if I didn't look at the things around me. Yeah. Truth Seeker says, the only thing that is helping me heal my hypervigilance has been being no contact. Yeah, that's incredibly healing. You know, the only way a wound can heal is if we quit touching it. And that's the beauty of no contact. Yes, it's difficult, but it really is when the healing starts. Stacy says, Dana, I need advice. Okay, go ahead and ask your question, and I will keep my eyes open for it. And for the rest of you on the chat, if you can let me know if I miss her question, please get my attention. I'm gonna let the chat go. I'm not gonna pause it. So looks like a member on here, and I missed part of the comments on here, is talking about getting help from a doctor, PTSD. Yes, I would say that because here's the thing, a lot of this terminology that we use is not standard terminology. It's not widely recognized terminology. So if you were to say to a doctor, I was narcissistically abused, there's a very solid chance that they're not going to know what that means. So I would just use the terminology that you were in an abusive relationship, and you don't need to go into any detail that you don't want to go into. So say that you are recently out of an abusive relationship, you're having a hard time with kind of XYZ, whatever is your, these concerning issues, and see if you can get on something, even if it's something temporarily. So that's how I would kind of frame that. Oh, she says, okay, Stacy says, I feel bad going no contact and my ex is on house arrest. I wish I didn't miss her and care despite everything. Yeah, totally normal. It's not easy to go no contact. So what I recommend people do in this type of situation is I have a list that I call, it's a for when you miss him or her list. And on this list, in this list, you write out in like bullet point format, so it's easy to scan, bullet point format of all of the reasons that you need to go, why you need to go, why this relationship is toxic for you. And it could be, because here's the thing, our brain is a funny thing. So nostalgia sets in like a fog, and it's amazing the stuff that we can forget, quote unquote forget or deny, that we'll remember later on. So put in there, this is what she did, this is the lies, these are the lies that she told, this is the pain that she caused me. And then when you're finding yourself feeling bad, being like, well, I want to talk to her, I miss her, you can pull out that list, and then you read that list, and it should snap you awake enough to be like, you know what, this is not a relationship, this is a manipulationship. And the sooner you can kind of clarify that to yourself, I think the easier it will be. And then also realizing, here's the thing with people in general, is that nobody is 100% good or bad. So abusive people, yes, there are, I'm sure, some things about her that are great that, you do miss. That's normal. But it's the deal breaker stuff that needs to be deal breaker stuff. So it doesn't matter how funny she was, or charming, or intelligent, or witty, or beautiful, or any of these things. If she's abusive, that's a deal breaker. Like, you can't work with that. You really can't. So, to try to get really clear within yourself as far as what are your deal breakers, what are your lines in the sand, and realizing, okay, it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. And then finding a support group. Support groups really do help for those low moments, because most all of us have them, where we start wondering, we're like, you know what? Maybe they weren't that bad. Maybe they're not a narcissist. Maybe they can be helped. Maybe they can go to therapy. Maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe I'm a jerk for going no contact. All of that is also very normal too. So kind of realizing, I think, what you're in for, the path emotionally, like, this is what it's normal to think these thoughts. It's normal to feel these feelings. It's normal to feel conflicted about, why do I still love a person who treated me like crap? Totally normal. And you miss her because even though she had this highly problematic behavior, you were still in what you thought in a real relationship with a real person. You did not realize that you were in a manipulationship. And it takes time for those bonds to separate. It does. No matter how horrible the person was, it just takes time. Because you're a normal human being that had normal human emotions for another person that you thought was very much like you. That they had the capacity to change, and, the ability to attach and love at the same level that you did. So Stacy says, do you think she knows all this, Dana? What, like narcissism? I think different. That's a really great point. Let me just touch on this really quick. That's a really great point. David says, I still miss my narcissist, but at this point I realize that's an addiction. Yes, bingo. It is. It's a chemical addiction, and it does pass. It does pass. It really, really does. And, to try to kind of ride that storm out as much as you possibly can. So, okay, back to your question. Do I think, there's so many good questions. Hold on a second. Let me stop the chat because I can come back to them. Okay, so I think with when you've got people that have narcissistic behavior to any degree of the spectrum, you also have people that have different degrees of self-awareness about their behavior. A lot of narcissists, by and large, are deeply unconscious people. So they're trying to get those empty buckets filled too, but they're going about it in a very immature, very childish, very destructive way, and they don't even realize it. I think there's, I couldn't tell you offhand what the percentage would be, but I think there's quite a few of them out there. Their level of narcissism impacts people in a way that they're just neglectful. Like, they don't necessarily maliciously mean to hurt people. They're just so self-absorbed that everything is all about them. And so they're like, they don't have anything to give to other people because it's just all about them for whatever reason. Then you have people that are more actively abusive, that with any kind of abuse. And even, I mean, but don't get me wrong, like, neglect is still abusive. But, you know, like other forms of abuse, like psychological, emotional, verbal, sexual, financial, physical, you know, emotional, those kinds of abuse, they tend to be, I think, somewhat more aware that they're doing it because they have the sense to be able to hide it. But at the same time, especially with some of that abuse, sometimes I don't think that they really are truly aware. I don't know. I don't think that they really are aware of it. So but then you have like more of like the sociopaths on the spectrum. A lot of them are fully aware that they are intentionally exploiting other people. These are people that are, you know, online dating scammers that are befriending widows and people that are lonely, and then they're extorting money out of them. Like, that's a very conscious thing. Like, I am consciously choosing that person as a target and I'm going to exploit them. They are the con artists of the world. So, and of course it's hard to say what another person does or doesn't know because we're not in their brain. We don't know. But really, at the end of the day, either way you look at it, you lose. So I guess kind of going based off that criteria, that would be enough for me to keep my distance. Because either they're totally aware of their behavior and they don't care, which is problematic, or they're totally unaware of their behavior and that's still problematic. So we can't get them to see the light, unfortunately. You know, you could try mentioning things, but odds are, you know, it's hard to see with any of us, right? It's hard to see our own behavior. There's that Bible passage, something along the lines of, you know, it's easy for us to see the splinter in the eye of our neighbor, but we can't see the log in our own. A lot of truth to that. So, you know, all any of us can do is to say, hey, this is a problem and this is not working for me. This is my boundary. And if they don't respect that, to realize, oh man, this hurts like hell. I am going to have to distance myself to where I am safe and sane around this person. And it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of awesome things about them, but this is deal breaker stuff. And I can't have this in my life. Like, this isn't going to work. And yes, it hurts like hell, but it's going to hurt longer the longer you keep that kind of behavior in your life. Because it's going to continue to cause you hurt and heartache, and they're not going to, if they're not motivated to change, then, you know, what do you do with that? Like, there's nothing that you necessarily can do. So Kevin asks, is it possible to heal whilst living with a narcissist? Yes and no. So I don't know if heal is the right word I would use in that context. I think you can start going down that path. I think a lot of it's going to depend on your mindset and kind of how you're perceiving their behavior. So if you're living with a person, with a narcissist, what's damaging about that is if you're letting their behavior impact you. If it's impacting you emotionally, which generally that tends to be what it is, then, you know, that's really hard to kind of move forward from. So if you're in a situation where you have to live with a narcissist for whatever reason, what you can try to do, what I think really what you must do if you can't leave soon, is to try to detach emotionally as much as possible. So to go gray rock, but then to also realize that their behavior is a reflection of them. It is not a reflection of you. So you can't drive anybody to treat you that kind of way. It's really hard to stay emotionally detached and to stay at a place where you can observe, to observe behavior as it's kind of going on without getting sucked in emotionally. Not saying it can't be done. It for sure can be done. But if we're talking family, like family, that's really hard. It's really hard to stay at a place where we're observers of it. But it can be done. And it can be in that kind of, I guess if I were you, okay, so if I was in a situation where I had to stay for any length of time, I would try to make it work for my highest and greatest good. And so I would, with that kind of a situation, I'd be like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is like not ideal, but here we are. So I am going to practice observing their behavior and observing my own behavior. And then kind of like touching base with yourself. So you're like, okay, I had this interaction with, this narcissist or my abusive parent, and this is what they said, and then this is how I reacted, and what what did I do right in that situation, or what would I do differently next time? And I think if you can kind of just reframe the whole thing, if you can. That book, I think it was you that recommended that book, The Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker book. If you start looking at their behavior too, in terms of defense mechanisms, then their behavior makes a lot more sense too. And I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I know for me, reading that book helped me to have almost a compassion for the narcissists that are in my family, to have compassion for them. Because behavior that I used to see as really controlling, really smothering, really minimizing, I now see as, wow, that's sad. Like, that's really fear-based behavior. Like, this person is really driven to try to control things out of a place of fear. It has nothing to do with me. Like, it's them. It's them. And you just kind of see their behavior in a different light. It's not saying that makes their behavior okay, but it helps to kind of understand it a little bit better, to where it's easier, I think, to take a few steps back and to stay more emotionally neutral with experiencing it. So Darcy asks, how do you know if they were sociopathic? So generally, sociopaths tend to have a pattern of exploiting other people. They're like the con artists out there. Narcissists tend to be more like have a blinding degree of selfishness and like a jaw-dropping level of entitlement. Some narcissists are grandiose, some are not. Some are, but really like the defining characteristics are selfishness and entitlement. Sociopaths have that as well, but they tend to be very charming. They tend to be very, have a pattern of exploiting people. So whether or not they are actually caught for that, they don't have any real regard for social like laws or kind of morals or values. But all sociopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are sociopaths. So a person can be a narcissist, they can have that blinding degree of selfishness, and they might not be necessarily exploiting other people. They might not be to that extent. Their selfishness might just starve out those around them, but sociopaths tend to have more of kind of a criminal mentality towards people. It's they use people a lot more. Narcissists, not all narcissists, necessarily, like, they manipulate and they try to get their way, but they don't necessarily like outright, like, use people like sociopaths do. If that kind of answers the question. Really, as far as I'm concerned, they're all shades of the same color. Is really what we're talking about. It's all different, just kind of degrees of selfishness is really what it boils down to. And then kind of the flip side of the coin of codependency is you've got a person that has degrees of selflessness. So codependence, it tends to be the exact opposite, where narcissists have this very much like this me first attitude, and codependent people tend to have this you first attitude, where we're like, I will sink myself in order to save you, whereas narcissists are, I'm sinking you, somebody needs to come save me. That's kind of, I think, maybe an easier way to look at it. So yeah, and they do that, and there's, the exploiting, the humiliation, the degradation, the abuse, all of it is just awful behavior. And I'm so sorry that you guys went, that you went through that, and that other people have gone through it. It's just, hopefully by doing a lot of this, we can put an end to it, bring awareness to this kind of behavior. So, let's see. Yeah, support groups. People are talking about being in support groups, and that's kind of the benefit of a support group is, even if you can get a really great therapist, and they are out there, but if you can get a really great therapist, that's 1 hour a week. So the benefit to a support group is, especially online support groups, is they're generally 24 hours a day, and they run around the clock, and there's people that are in there that are at all different levels of healing and understanding, and people, they get it. Like, they get it. So if you need to talk about what happened to you in order to process it, they're okay with, you need to talk about this some more, because that's the thing with, and people don't get this, if they haven't experienced it, or if they're far enough out in their healing, they tend to forget this. But when we're first out of it, this is part of that fight or flight response. So our brain is holding on to what caused us pain, and so it's trying to process what happened in order to keep us out of danger. And that's a big part of this kind of rehashing, where people feel the need to go over and over and over and over, even like minute detail of everything in their relationship, because it's your brain's way of putting the pieces together, especially if you were with an abusive person who is highly manipulative. Because when you start, and again, like, I've been there, when you start realizing, oh my gosh, this was a lie, and this was a lie, and this was a lie, and do I even know this person? Like, who was I sharing a bed with? It's incredibly unnerving. So it's very understandable that a person's going to be on high alert and kind of almost obsessive with trying to figure out, what were they lying about, and how deep does this really go? Because they're trying to make sense of it, because your brain is basically saying, I need to figure out what was true and what was a lie in order to help keep us safe next time around. So, but that level of like rehashing and trying to figure out, that can wear out, and it does tend to wear out a lot of, other people, even therapists, sometimes even people in support groups. It can really wear a person out. And that's kind of the benefit, I think, of support groups, is being in a place where you can, get a lot of that out. So, yeah, support groups are great. So, okay, so people are talking about, the emotional manipulators charming a therapist. And yes, and it does happen. And this is what's so important with trusting your judgment, trusting your feelings enough to where you don't need outside validation. Because that's the thing with diagnosing personality disorders. It's not an exact science, it's definitely an art. And these people are incredibly charming. They can be very manipulative. They can do a really great job at saying all the right things and promising change, or saying that we're the problem, or making it seem like, well, we both have issues, so we both need to be here. And in kind of leading a therapist, a well-intended therapist, down this rabbit trail of manipulation and nonsense and lies, which in turn is re-victimizing to the real victim, because they're not picking up on like what the person's being abused. So even if a therapist says, no, this person he or she's not a narcissist, the label doesn't matter. Oh boy, if I could get one thing, like drive 1 point home, you know, overall, I think that might be it. Because a lot of people get caught up on that. And I get it. But the label doesn't matter, because labels change. They change, they evolve over time. The DSM is not like the end all be all. The third edition of the DSM, in the beginning of it, it even says this is not to be used for like clinical criteria. This is not to be used for like diagnosing people. And what is it used for now? Diagnosing people. So this is not, you can ask a dozen different mental health professionals their take on a person, and you can get like a dozen radically different diagnoses. I mean, as a psychiatric nurse, I have seen diagnoses ranging from schizophrenia to bipolar to antisocial personality disorder, which is sociopaths, psychopaths, to I'm trying to think of some other ones. Paranoid personality disorder. Behavior can change. Whose husband went to other people. Jews here at my house. So, yes, I am sorry for that. I don't know what the problem is. Gosh, Kimberly asks, would you suggest if we seek counseling that we find a counselor that specializes in PTSD and narcissistic abuse? That would be great. I think you're going to be really hard pressed to find that. I would say that the vast majority of therapists out there are not even familiar with those terms, let alone the concepts behind the terms. If you're looking for a therapist, I would come up with a list of some questions that you kind of like want to ask. So maybe something like, maybe something that you experience, like if you experience a lot of psychological abuse, to be able to say, are you familiar with PTSD in terms of psychological abuse? Are you familiar with treating a person with psychological abuse? Are you familiar with, those kinds of things? Don't be afraid. Like these, this is your money and this is your time. So call a few different therapists up, talk to them on the phone for a few minutes before you schedule an appointment, and realize, again, like therapists, like any other profession, they're not all created equal. And it's important that you have a good rapport with one, and that you feel like that they have a good grip on the subject matter, because the downside is a therapist who doesn't can do a lot more harm than good. So and you might even kind of want to start off, even if you get in with somebody and you're like, you know what, I don't know if that they're necessarily really familiar with this topic, but you can tell them, say, hey, you know what, this is what I think I need. Like, this is what I think I need from a therapy session. Is this something that you can do? Like, I feel like I need somebody to listen to me, or kind of help me sort through like what was manipulative and what was not. Darcy asks, how can they do more harm? God, a therapist can do a lot of harm if they don't identify what a person went through as abuse, if they minimize what a person went through, if they have the mindset that, oh, it takes two to tango, so what did you do? Like, what did you do to cause the abuse? If they have the mindset of divorce is not good, if they have the mindset that people need to keep communication open with their family members by any, like I oh my God, I should write a book on like just ridiculous things that I've heard from people and experienced myself, damaging things from therapists. If they have a mentality that, I guess at the core, if they don't understand that the abusive person's mentality is a totally different mentality, then if they really think that every situation can be fixed, that kind of like the whole like it takes two to tango, then it can really negatively impact a person, especially if you're trying to do like couples therapy with a highly manipulative person. Or individual counseling, if you're using terms like narcissist or sociopath and they're not comfortable with you using those terms, or they're telling you that you can't diagnose them, so they don't want you use, if they're trying to control you in the situation, I would leave. Like, that would be my thing, because even if you're wrong, like even if the person is not like a clinically diagnosed narcissist, it doesn't matter. They don't need to be. A person just needs to have a blinding degree of selfishness to cause damage and destruction. So if you're finding yourself like having to justify where you're coming from, or you're arguing, find a different therapist. If you're again, paying attention to how you feel. I mean, there's so many different ways that issues can come up, but finding, if you can find a good therapist, they can be worth their weight in gold, but it can take some digging to find them. So just realize that I think a lot of people have this mindset that the therapist knows better than them, the therapist is never wrong, and the therapist is emotionally healthy. And those are generally all not true, necessarily. Therapists are people, just like the rest of us, and some of them have never even been to therapy. So they've never done their own personal work, which I find awful. If a person's only gone through 2 or 3 therapy sessions of their own, then I kind of have to I would be really hesitant to like, if they don't have a healthy degree of self-awareness, how are they going to help anybody else have a healthy degree of self-awareness, would be my question. And a lot of them they're just not familiar with abuse. They might maybe be able to recognize physical abuse, maybe, but the vast majority of them verbal, psychological, emotional, it's like not, doesn't even come across the radar. So, uh, Pink Pixie says, my ex keeps telling me I don't want to go to couples counseling because I can't handle admitting my mistakes. And really, I know to not go to therapy with my ex from Dana's videos. So, yeah, I would say go to individual counseling if that's, what you are wanting to do. If you're trying to possibly work on things, start with individual counseling first, and then develop a healthy, good rapport with a therapist, letting them know, like, this is kind of what's going on. And I think my husband, my significant other, is really manipulative. This is the kind of stuff that's going on. So, and kind of see what they say. But the danger of couples counseling with an abusive person is that it generally makes the abuse worse, because now they know all of your cards. They know exactly the hand that you're holding. They know your vulnerabilities. They know what's bothering you. So when they do start manipulating, or when they are fighting, odds are they're going to bring up everything that you brought up in therapy, and they're going to use it against you. So, that kind of stuff is incredibly painful. Yeah, gaslighting and triangulation is par for the course. Yeah, pathological lie. If a person's a pathological liar, that's just, frankly, that's not, to me, that's not workable, because without trust in a relationship, there's no relationship. And okay, my internet might be going. It's so crazy. I'm having all these internet issues tonight. So, Daisy says, I've lived with my emotionally abusive husband for 20 years. It's been silent treatment after silent treatment. Any advice on how to behave and how to control the anger? Well, I think you're going to have to get really clear on what you want to do. Because odds are he's not going to change. So, and all you can do is set a boundary, but a boundary is only as good as your ability and willingness to enforce it. So, you can set boundaries all day long. You can tell him, hey, I'm not going to put up a silent treatment anymore. But if really, at the end of the day, if you're not wanting to leave this marriage, then, I think the only way for you to make it work would be to, I guess, ignore him when he's doing silent treatment, and, or tell him, just be like, oh, I guess you're doing silent treatment again, and point it out, and then try to not let it bother you. But I mean, really, that's kind of the only options, is either you leave, or you try to work on it. But if he's not willing to work on it, then all you can really do is endure it and suffer through it, because that's kind of three options. So you can leave, he can work to change, or you can suffer through it, which is tough. And I'm sorry, that's a long time to be with somebody and to put up with silent treatment kind of stuff. So, I guess, if it was me, and my mindset was, okay, you know what, I don't want a divorce for whatever reason, and I'm going to stay and I'm going to try to endure this, then again, kind of going back to that third mindset of I'm going to try to make this work for me, for my highest and best good, I would try to detach emotionally and just realize his behavior is a reflection of him. It's not a reflection of you. And I just would totally detach emotionally and try to see it as ridiculous and childish as it really is. And so I would just probably try to make a game out of it, you know, and be like, okay, you're going to do silent treatment. And then you could just be I don't know. I mean, this is assuming that he's not violent. This is assuming kind of a lot of things, but you know, assuming that this is what he just does this silent treatment. I would just become really obnoxious. I would start singing. I would just say like, okay, I guess you're going to give me silent treatment like you normally do for 2 weeks. Well, fantastic. Now I don't have to listen to you bitch anymore. And then just, you know, I'd get on the phone around him. If you're sitting there at dinner and he's not talking to you, he's giving you silent, get on the phone, call somebody, or turn the radio on, and, you know, just act like this is ridiculous behavior and I'm just going to go so over the top with it and I'm not going to let it negatively impact me at all. Then that, I think you might have a good chance of him potentially ending the silent treatment sooner than later, because he's going to realize it's not getting to you. You know, or you could just say, oh, I guess you're trying to punish me now with silent treatment. You know, that's not going to work. So let me know when you're done. Let me know when you're ready to have an adult conversation, and then we can do that. But I'm going to go eat my dinner in front of the TV. You know, so trying to kind of reclaim your power and control over the situation as much as you possibly can. So silent treatment only works if you let it work. And just letting him know that his behavior, it's like a little kid. Like, it's not impacting me at all. You're throwing a temper tantrum over there like a little kid. Okay, I don't see you. Like, not going to acknowledge that. And then asking them, okay, are you done? Like, let me know when you're done. Like, are you sure you're done? Are you sure? Like, you could, you know, you didn't really give it your all. Really kick and scream and cry. Really get into it. Like, I want to move me. Like, make me feel. Make me feel your temper tantrum. Like, I don't fully buy it yet. And then just kind of, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, just try to just see it for the ridiculousness that it is, and see how that goes. But again, this is, of course, assuming that they don't have a history of violence or aggression, and that you're not potentially putting yourself in harm's way by kind of egging them on. So, yeah, Kevin says, Richard Grannon said to basically fight fire with fire when dealing with narcissism as an option. So use their own tactics onto them, but definitely not long-term solution. You know, I would agree to an extent. You know, obviously no contact is the best way to go. Making sure that you're staying gray rock as much as possible, and like detaching emotionally and realizing this is not a reflection of you, that this is how they handle things. And, but, you know, the whole fighting fire with fire, that can that can lead to murder. So you definitely want to make sure that the person's not, you know, unstable. I mean, if you feel like you're in danger, physical danger with them, definitely, totally do not recommend doing this kind of stuff. Like what I'm talking about, that's more for like your more just selfish, neglectful, hurtful kinds of narcissists out there. It's not for the dangerous, scary, psychotic, abusive ones, like physically abusive ones. That's an interesting question. Marie says, do you think that narcissists are the only people that punish people they date? Or do normal people do that too? I don't, okay, there's a couple sticking points with that. So, normal and healthy are two very different things, right? So, yeah, I'm sure there's lots of like quote unquote normal people that do all kinds of bad behavior. It still doesn't make it okay. It's still bad behavior. Um, you know, to me, that's toxic behavior. Punishing somebody because they've acted in a certain way is it's not okay. It to me it shows a total lack of um, communication skills and maturity. So to me that would be deal breaker stuff. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Like that right there, like would be deal breaker stuff. So yeah, it's at a minimum it's highly problematic behavior. Behavior that toxic people have and behavior that probably some normal people have too, but again, it's you know like not not okay. Healthy people, if there's an issue in the relationship, they bring it up. They have that open, honest, sincere, solutions oriented communication where it's like, you know what, here's what's going on. Here are my concerns. Let's work together as a team to resolve it. Uh, a toxic mentality or an unhealthy mentality is it does not have open, honest, sincere, solutions oriented communication. It has the exact opposite. So it has, closed, dishonest, insincere communication that's seeking to win. It's seeking to punish. It's creating that me versus you dynamic. Whereas healthy behavior doesn't do that. Healthy behavior says, let's work towards a win-win. Let's find a solution that we can use this problem in our relationship to build on, to foster communication and closeness, instead of the more narcissistic mentality, which is it's me versus you, it's win versus lose, you know, it's not about reaching common ground. It's about I'm right, you're wrong. And that's not, to me, that's not workable behavior, because that's not what a relationship is. I mean, a relationship's a give and take, but it's not with a narcissist. So, Pink Pixie was saying, want to hear a good one? He calls me Donald Trump when he lies. He uses playground bully techniques, etc. I stay gray rock and take the high road. Stuffing pain is manifesting into physical illness for me. So let me address the first point of that. Yes, a lot, they will do that, and it's so weird. It's so weird, like when you experience it, because they're accusing you of doing exactly what they're doing. So that's projection. And it's really wild when you experience it, because here this person is obviously, well, generally completely unaware that they're actually doing that behavior, that they're saying, and I've had that happen to me before, and it's so weird where you're like, wait a minute, you're accusing me of being manipulative and abusive, and I'm pretty sure that you're the one that just gave me silent treatment for 2 weeks, or that you're the one that just spun this conversation around, or that just started raging for no reason. I had a question, I challenged you, I didn't agree with what you were saying. Now you raged at me, hung up, tried to break up with me. Like, you're not solutions oriented at all. It's all about like this punishing crazy behavior. So yeah, but like that kind of stuff is it's exhausting, and it's crazy making, and it's not normal behavior. So, and yes, stuffing pain can lead to physical illness, I think, for a lot of people. So it's kind of doing what you need to do in order to take care of yourself. and this person, this relationship is not worth getting sick over. I mean, that's a big sign that something's really wrong if you're getting sick because of your relationship. A relationship should be a place where we go to get like nurtured and refreshed, and you're on a team, like you're pulling on the same side of the rope. It shouldn't be this me versus you, or this relationship is slowly killing me or making me sick, or I'm gaining weight or getting headaches or exhausted all the time, or I have chronic pain. Like that's a big sign that things are way off. No More says, my narcissist called me stupid and liar all the time. Does that mean that she thought she was stupid or that she was lying? If you're being called a certain thing, like being accused of something, like, oh, you're lying to me, or oh, you're cheating, or oh, you're stealing, and you're not, and there's like no behavior that you're doing that would indicate otherwise, then odds are it's projection. Because normal people with a clear conscience don't accuse other people of random things. So yes, if somebody's like, I'm pretty sure that you opened up a credit card in my name, and you're like, wait, what? Like, that's really specific and really obscure. Odds are they opened up a credit card in your name, and they're accusing you of doing the opposite, or cheating is a big one. If it's that constant preoccupation with, well, how do I know you're not cheating? And I think that you're cheating, and they're wanting to always check up on you, and you're like, I have done nothing to make them question my fidelity, then odds are they're up to something. So Jack, when I was with him, he used to, at the tail end, well, not even at the tail end, periodically, out of the blue, started accusing me of cheating. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I am like, when would like, I'm at work, or I'm with you. And he would even go so far as to go through my laundry. I don't even know what he was looking for, but he was so, and I thought, oh, well, here he just has issues because his ex-wife cheated on him, which turned out to be a lie. He was cheating on her. But I just thought he had these past issues. I just did not think in a million years that he would be cheating on me. And because he was home a lot too. And I don't know, we had a really good relationship. Of course, it was all fake. It was all him mirroring me. So I had a great relationship with myself, apparently. But it was all insincere. And yeah, but it was really like after we broke up, and then really realizing, oh my God, he's been cheating on me nonstop. And I didn't know about projection. I didn't know about a lot of these terms or these concepts. And like the pieces like slowly began fitting together. It was just really, really wild. So yeah. Pink Pixie says, I can't have contact with him. He will never change. And, that's the thing. If a person is not at that, if they're at that like pre-contemplative state of change where they don't see a problem, they're not going to change. It doesn't matter if they're a narcissist or an alcoholic or an anorexic or have a gambling issue or they're cheating or they're doing bouncing checks. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what their behavior is. If they don't fully see that there's a problem, like if they're continuing to justify it, if you're having to pull the truth out of them, that's a sign that they are not fully accountable for their behavior. And, like, people have to generally hit rock bottom in order for them to experience enough pain for them to do something different. All of us work like that. I mean, very few people get inspired to change. It tends to be that there's that kind of that vice grip on us, that, gaining weight, right? So like the scale slowly starts creeping up. It hits a certain number and you're like, oh my God, okay, like done. From here on out, it's salad and water. Like you have that wake up call where it could be like that one comment, but there's that point like you hit rock bottom with drinking, with eating, with spending, with a relationship, with what have you, where everything changes. But if a person doesn't ever get to that place, they don't ever change because there's no motivation for them to change. Stacy says, I wonder if Sam Vaknin hit rock bottom. No, I don't think so at all. I think his angle is the opposite. I think he's claiming to be self-aware, but has no desire to change. So, I mean, he's not changing. So, it's sort of like knowing, like, okay, I know I'm an alcoholic. Okay. No, what are you going to do about it? Nothing? Okay. Glad, you got halfway there. It's a good thing that you know that there's a problem, but if you're not motivated to change it, then it's still a problem. So the problem with narcissists isn't that, because they're a narcissist, they like can't change. The reason narcissists don't change is there's no sincere desire for them to change. So it doesn't, and especially I think with Sam, because he's built a whole business around this. So there really isn't a desire, and he found a woman, he's married to a woman. So, and their relationship, whatever it is, works on whatever level that it works on. So there's no, why would he change? Like whatever he's doing is working for him. So, Mika asks, if Trump wins the presidency, how would you feel knowing that he is a narcissist? Well, my take on it is I think Trump is a narcissist, but I think Hillary Clinton is a sociopath. So it's sort of like, who do you want to win, the black mamba or the rattlesnake? Like, neither. I don't really feel like this is a true choice. So I think with Hillary, it's going to be business as usual in the White House because she's out to just for, political power and gain and to kind of exploit and make money and kind of do her thing. Trump scares me because he really is more of, and there's lots of sociopaths out there, so that are politicians, that are CEOs, that are, same with narcissists. So what scares me with Trump is how he will not back down. That's going to be problematic. So especially with other countries and, there's a lot, frankly, there's a lot of things that I like about Trump. I think that he's really a no-nonsense guy. He's a businessman. I think there's a lot of things that could be done, but his personality is pathological, and I think he's going to steamroll over the Constitution and Congress and everything else. So in a lot of ways, it really does terrify me because it's that type of personality that, historically speaking, has been very problematic. It's, you give a narcissist power, it's, pulling a thread on a sweater. It's highly problematic. So, Yeah, so people are talking about the different terms, Sam being diagnosed as psychopath. So a lot of those terms, psychopath and sociopath, those two terms, at least in the DSM, have been combined into one term, which is now antisocial personality disorder. So DSM criteria, there is no differentiation between the two. Should there be? Probably. I think there's a lot of people out there. Dr. Robert Hare wrote a really great book. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it right now. About the kind of the difference between like psychopaths and sociopaths, and why he thinks the two different concepts shouldn't be, they're not the same, and that they shouldn't be rolled under the same label. But again, kind of like for diagnostic purposes, in my line of work, when we see somebody and we're like, okay, this person is a narcissist, which is very, that diagnosis really by and large seems to have kind of gone out of vogue. Like it's just not used that much. If anything, it's more paranoid personality disorder, or antisocial personality disorder, or borderline personality disorder, especially for women. That's just what I see. So it's just kind of a quick, what the downside of that is, because it's a scale, right? It's like a continuum. So yeah, you've got a person that might be considered antisocial, but where on that range? I mean, are we talking that they have committed financial crimes, or that they have continued, they've gotten 10 different women pregnant, and they don't pay child support, and there's no empathy, there's no remorse, they're just exploiting people, it's all about them? Or have they, are they a serial killer? Like, where on that continuum are they? That would be a lot more helpful, frankly, than I think kind of designating these different terms, because they can present really, really well. So if you see a person with a certain diagnoses, it would be nice to almost have it kind of like a graded criteria, where you really know at quick glance kind of what you're dealing with. So that's Darcy asks, there's depression within these personality disorders, correct? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I mean, everybody's different, and like I said, it's on a continuum. So there are narcissists out there that are very self-loathing and have a lot of anger and a lot of issues, and that's kind of more of what's driving their narcissism. So a person can be a narcissist for several different reasons, right? So head trauma would be one, like a car accident, drug addiction, substance abuse can cause addiction of any kind. Really causes a person to become narcissistic, because they're driven by the need to get that substance. They might not have necessarily a personality disorder, but if they have no desire to get clean, then it doesn't really matter, because that's their personality that they're going to have for potentially years on end until they do get clean. But and then again, there's ranges, right? So a person can be incredibly selfish, to where that level of narcissism is impacting other people, or it could be a lot more severe, where they're intentionally, maliciously, sadistically abusive. That's kind of further down the spectrum. And I knew a guy, very much a narcissist, and was incredibly depressed and had a lot of anger, and his narcissism was he just was angry. He just was angry and bitter and jaded, and it was all about him because of that. So, oh, he's a heroin addict and he has a head trauma. Well, to me, it doesn't matter. Like, if a person's got dangerous behavior that's negatively impacting your life, you have to move yourself to a place where you stay safe and sane. Doesn't matter if they're a heroin addict, doesn't matter if they've had a closed head injury, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because if their behavior is not changing, then you're in danger. So I would not try to make something like that work. That's a lot. I mean, pick any one of those things, and that would be a deal breaker, I think, for most people. So I would encourage you, when you're dating people, to look at other people. You've really got to screen them like you're interviewing for a really important job, because that's what it is. It's like the job of your partner. So you want to find a person that you really are excited and like who they are today. Don't date somebody that you're like, okay, they'd be so perfect if they would fix X and Y and Z, and this would be different. Because then you're not looking for a partner, you're looking for a project. And this is why deal breaker stuff is important. Okay, you broke up with them in February. Okay, good. Okay, speaking of head injuries, here's a story for you. I had a friend when I was in college, a roommate of mine. She was dating a quarterback, played football in college. One game he was playing at, that was lightning hit the goalpost, bounced off, and hit him. He was seemingly totally fine. He walked off the field, had their whole medical review. He was fine. I don't know how long after that happened, but I don't know, maybe a few months. He began having this really weird thing. Now, mind you, he's a big dude. He was, I don't know, 6'3", 6'4", 240. I mean, a big dude. He had this weird thing where it's like his brain wouldn't really go into REM sleep. So when he was sleeping at night, instead of, your body makes you paralyzed when you sleep, so you don't act out your dreams. He wasn't having that. So he was actually getting up and acting, like saying things. It was wild. His roommates videoed him doing this. So he would say, there's videos of him with his eyes open, and he's like, "You guys, leave me alone. Like, I'm just trying to find, like, where the pineapple is. Gee." And it was kind of that crazy dream speak. So he was dreaming. Well, his dreams, because sometimes we have good dreams and sometimes we have bad dreams. And so my roommate, who was I'm about 5'1", she was about my height. She was probably about 100 pounds. Like, she was tiny. She became really terrified of him because when he had bad dreams, he was not aware that he was dreaming and would, would say and do scary things. And he went through sleep study after sleep study. They didn't know they knew what was wrong with him. It had something to do with the lightning, but they didn't know how to fix it. And she finally had to break up with him because she was like, he could very well kill me in a sleep and not even know it and not mean to. And she was so upset by it because he was a really great guy and he had this tragic accident that really negatively impacted his life. So, it's sad. It's sad, especially when you see a person who didn't do anything, and now that they have this major problematic behavior, and there's nothing that anybody can do. But you've got to keep yourself to a place where, you stay safe and sane, and that's all any of us can do. So Stacy asks, can a relationship with two narcissists work? Okay, I guess it depends on how you define a relationship. To me, a relationship is something that's based on trust and dignity and respect, and involves, open, honest, sincere communication. So narcissists, kind of by definition, right? So narcissism is all about this extreme degree of selfishness. A person who's only self-oriented is not capable of having a relationship with somebody else because it's all about them. So can they have a relationship? No. Can a narcissist have a relationship with anybody? No, because it's one-sided. That's why they're energy vampires. Can they be married? Can they date? Can they have other, like a partner? Yes. But is it a relationship in the sense of, I think, how most of us would have described a relationship? No. It's two parasites, two people that have a problematic degree of self-orientation. You've got two selfish people that are in a dynamic, let's say. So if they're in a dynamic and they're both self-oriented, then they've got to be feeding each other to some degree. So if it's like, if I'm all about me and I'm like, okay, I need it to be all about me, and I'm really focused on, I don't know, hair and makeup and clothes. That's how I'm selfish. That's how it's all about me. And they're all about them, and they're very, sex oriented. Or that's how they tend to use people for supply. So if I use somebody for money and they're trying to use somebody for sex, then that could work because they're using each other for different things. Not healthy, right? It's not sincere. It's this, there's no real deep connection there. It's a dynamic that's based off of manipulation. But yeah, I mean, they can stay married for years and years, and it's to me, it's like a ridiculous hot mess, but yeah, it does happen. John asks, do men slide up and down on the narcissism scale depending on life circumstances? I think we all do, John. I don't think, not even think. I know. I mean, narcissism. It's a human trait. So here's my handy dandy scale that I really need to redraw, like in a better way, because it's really hard to read and it looks awful. But you can kind of get the gist of what I was going for here, if you can see that. So there's a scale of narcissism and codependency. Let me show the other group. So if you have kind of this continuum here, from, let's say, narcissism is a -10, so severe narcissism, -10. Severe codependency, we'll say +10, but really it's severe codependency is also a -10. In the middle is 0, which would be like the perfect balance of giving and taking, right? And then you've got a range, like kind of +3 to -3. So that's kind of the range of normal behavior, like quote unquote healthy narcissism or a healthy degree of codependency, let's say. Normal people tend to fall somewhere on that number line. And, but at the same time, all of us have things to work on in our life. So there might be certain things about you that are you're like, like when I was an alcoholic, I was incredibly narcissistic. I was, selling my food stamps instead of feeding my children. I was selling those to get alcohol. Incredibly narcissistic, right? But that was maybe more due to the alcoholism than necessarily like a personality thing. If a person is, I don't know, really driven, they're starting up a new business and like, it's got to be all about me right now. I've got to be doing this, 16 hours a day, and the spouse has got to feed and clothe and do everything else. Definitely more of like that self-orientation. And there's a term out there too called fleas. It's basically when we've picked up bad behaviors from being around a narcissist, being around like an incredibly selfish person. So a lot of us have had a narcissist or incredibly selfish person as a parent. So odds are we've got some stuff that we need to work on too, or we're like, you know what, I see some of this within me, and yikes, that's scary. But again, it's being aware of our behavior and then being motivated to change it. So for example, with my personal life, I am a terrible gift giver. Terrible. It's awful. And it's gross. Like it bothers me that I have picked up that trait. And I think I let it slide for a really long time. And it's just the older I get, the more I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be this person. Like, I don't want to be the person that gives gifts late, or that gives gifts that aren't personal. And so that's something that I'm like, you know what? I really want to work on that and to make an effort to, give myself plenty of time to go shopping and to keep this person in mind and to celebrate holidays and birthdays and so like we all have stuff. And yeah, there's lots of narcissists out there that are terrible gift givers because they don't care about other people's birthdays. They don't care about, they don't bother to get to know people well enough. They don't listen when other people talk, so they don't really know what other people like or don't like. And I don't think I'm a narcissist. I think I've got there's some like flea kind of behaviors that I have. I'm not worried about it because I know that I can see, of course, I'm sure there's behavior that I have that I don't see that is potentially problematic or problematic to some people. But if I'm aware of it and if I'm sincerely motivated to change it and I'm actually taking actions to do that, then it's not so much of a problem. It's just more of a bad habit that I've been in for a long time. So I think everybody slides up and down that scale of narcissism, especially. I think narcissism is kind of like our natural human default of us first. I mean, that kind of is our primitive survival mechanism is ourself first. But I think a lot of people slide, narcissism for sure, but, even within codependency. And I don't think it's just a male thing. I think it's a female thing for sure. I think the term narcissist has really kind of gotten a bad rap as far as it being seen as primarily a male thing. And I really don't think that I think it's probably a lot closer to 50-50 than statistics currently show. Because I think, frankly, a lot of the statistics are really skewed with how they measure data and criteria. So, let's see. Yeah. John says, thank you for the very honest and hopeful reply. I feel like as though sometimes I have narcissistic tendencies, but I do care about how others feel, and I hate when my actions hurt others. Yeah, then if you're aware of the behavior that you're doing and you have a sincere desire to actually change it, then don't worry about it. Seriously, like take that energy that you're channeling into worrying about it and channel that into action with fixing it. So it's not an issue. Yeah. The longer you're with a narc, odds are the more bad habits you're going to pick up. And this is true. So, and sometimes it's time. Like, it takes time where it's hard to see our own stuff. It's so much easier to look at other people and be like, oh, they've got this problem and this problem and this problem and this problem. Like, we all have clarity for other people. We all do. It's so much harder to look at our own behavior and be like, I really could stand to work on that. It's hard to do. But, but if we see it, then we can work on it. It's just really seeing it. That's when it's nice, I think, to have honest people around that can say, hey, you know what? I noticed this, or this kind of goes back to that open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication. So if you have a friend or somebody in your life that you can say, hey, you know what, this is what I'm trying to work on. And you own it. Like, you just fully own your behavior. I tell my friends, for the past year or so that I've been working on this is something that I'm working on. I am really sorry. Like, I'm really sorry that I've gotten in the habit of mailing stuff off late, or doing just, I don't know, this the stuff that I've been doing. Like, it's gross and it's not okay, and it's not a reflection of you or how I feel about you. It's me, and it's something that I want to work on, and I want to show you that I really do care, and I am making a concerted effort, and just owning it, and then really, I because it's not something that's natural for me. Like, I have a friend, gift giving. She's freaking phenomenal. She could, if that's a profession, like, she could do it as a profession. She just does a great job. I mean, at finding like the perfect gift for people, and she shops year round and for people, and plans way ahead. And the way she wraps stuff is like, intricate, and like, there's so much thought that goes into it. It's really just awesome. And so that's kind of like my goal, is to harness, her name's Heather, harness my inner Heather, like, be that kind of a gift giver when it comes to giving gifts, because she does a really good job of letting people know how she feels through gifts. And so, kind of speaking of which, I think that approach of harnessing your inner so-and-so is a good way to go about it. Because if we're like, you know what, I have this bad behavior that I don't like, that I picked up along the way from who knows where, childhood, parents, family, an ex, who knows, to ask yourself, who does have behavior that you like? So who does a really good job at buying gifts, or being romantic, or being a good dad, or whoever has that quality, whether they could be living or dead, they could be real or fictional, it doesn't matter. Like, asking yourself, who does a really good job with this, and then trying to kind of channel that person. Obviously not literally, but like, be like, okay, if I don't know, like, if you're trying to practice patience, you could say, okay, like, who does a really good job of being like patient or present? If you're trying, that's a better example. If you're trying to go gray rock, or trying to not let things affect you, if you're trying to detach emotionally, who does a good job? I think Eckhart Tolle does a great job at that. So being like, okay, I'm going to try to channel like my inner Eckhart Tolle, and bring that out in certain situations. For some reason, it's a lot easier, I think, to think about our behavior in terms of like, what would somebody else do? Because it'll help kind of guide us. So I think about, what would Heather do? How would she think about this? How would she wrap this? And I find that it really, it kind of like is a life hack. Like, it kind of shortcuts the process to where I'm not having to learn that skill from the ground up. I'm just kind of trying to take on her thought process for it, and then getting similar results. So and that's the thing, we were talking about this last week a little bit with role models. So a lot of people are like, oh, but Dana, I didn't have a good role model for how to be a parent, or how to be a good husband, or a good wife, or a good friend. And the reality is, I don't know if most people really do, for starters, A, but also B, to me, there's two types of role models. You have a good role model, which we all wish we had, but then you also have what I call a reverse role model. So if you had a parent, so let's say you had a mother who was an alcoholic, and she was physically abusive, and she was verbally abusive and belittling, and did not give you what you needed in a mother. So then now it's your turn and let's say she was a single mother. So you don't even know like how a father would have acted because you didn't have a father growing up. It was just a single mom who was an addict or an alcoholic, right? Okay, so now you didn't have a good role model, but now you can use that as a reverse role model. So you're like, okay, I know what I didn't get. So now I'm going to do the reverse of that. So instead of being drunk all the time or drunk around my children, I'm going to be sober around my children. Instead of having them, make excuses for me, I'm never going to put my children in a situation like that. Instead of, calling my children names, instead of using my words to tear them down, I'm going to use my words to lift them up. Instead of spending my money on alcohol, instead of buying them new school clothes or food, I'm going to make sure that my kids have school clothes and food. So you're just kind of doing the opposite of that behavior. I think you'll be surprised as to kind of how far that'll really get a person when you're just doing the opposite of what you experienced. So, yes, let's see what's going on in the other group here. Yeah, Sylvie says, yes, I gave my 6 kids what I was wishing I had received. Postmodern says, yes, I became the mother I never had. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, all any of us can do is to do the best we can with the knowledge and kind of the emotional awareness we have at the time. And that is an ever evolving process, and hindsight's always 2020. So if you're doing the best that you can now, that's all you can do. And obviously we can all seek out information on personal growth or parenting or seeking out more information, but all you can do today is with what you have today. And it's ever evolving. So yes, it's all about progress, not perfection. And I think too, owning and letting kids know that, because kids, all of us, when we were kids too once, right? We think that we hold our parents on this pedestal because they're not, in our eyes, they're not people, they're our parents. And they are this authority figure. They are, people, they're right up there with God for a kid. The role of parent is so, it's a holy, sacred role for children. It doesn't get any higher than the role of parent. But the downside is we're all so human and we're not perfect and we do make mistakes. And to let kids know, I like for us to own our behavior at any age, even if the children are, in their 40s, if we're saying, you know what, I wish I would have done this differently, or I am sorry, or, I did the best I could with what I knew. And this is, and you just kind of own it and let them know that like your behavior was a reflection of you and who you were at that point in your life. It was not a reflection of them, because kids internalize so much stuff. And even if you have minor children living at home, to open up that conversation and let them know, like, I love you guys so much, and there's a really good chance that there's stuff that I did or am doing or will do that might hurt you emotionally. There's things that I might say that might be insensitive or that I don't mean for you to hear, or things that I might do. And I love you guys and I'm coming from a good place, but I'm human too. And so when I say hurtful things, to kind of let them know, like, that's not okay. Obviously, like, if you're saying, hurtful things to your child intentionally, it's not okay. But if you're doing other things that are potentially hurtful, for them to have that conversation open enough to where they can say, hey, this hurt my feelings, or you can work on that kind of communication. So it's not so one-sided of, I'm the parent, you're the child, it's my way, you're not entitled to your thoughts or your feelings. It's, you should be glad that you're here, and you should be glad that I have a roof over your head and that I feed you. Like, it's crazy when people say stuff like that. So oh, I like that. Kevin says, I saw a bumper sticker once. It says, give children a stable home. At the very least, let the home be a stable place. Yeah. Yep. I agree. There's, a lot to be said for that, to just that consistency, especially with kids, that, they're going to come home and they're going to have a routine, and the rules are going to be consistent, and the people that are in the house are going to be consistent, and emotions are going to be consistent, and that they can have that trust that that we're going to behave consistently, and consequences are consistent, and all of that. It really is helpful for a kid to kind of have structure like that. So let's see. Jody asks, how do we go no contact and stick with it? I touched on this a little bit earlier. So a lot of it has to do with writing your for when you miss him or her list. And in that list, it's a bullet point list where you list out every rotten, hurtful thing that they have done. So all of the reasons as to why that relationship is toxic. And so when you find nostalgia kicking in, which it most likely will, you can go back and you can read that list and then be reminded of, okay, this is why this relationship is toxic. This is why I need to not be here. And it'll help you to stay no contact, because it'll remind you of why you're leaving. Is nostalgia, it's a funny thing, that nostalgia. It sets in like a fog, and it really does lead to forgetting, or kind of denial, really is what it is, but like forgetting the bad times and kind of glorifying the good. And then I think staying in a support group too. So, because we all you're in the support group, but we're all telling different versions of the same story. And so even if you're not sharing your story, reading what other people are going through and experiencing, and they're listening to them and their emotions and all of that is very, it'll remind you, like it'll help remind you of, okay, yeah, I need to stay gone, and this is why, and this is not working for me. So that's a very powerful way to stay no contact. And I think too, with staying no contact, other things that you can do is, it's sort of like quitting any addiction. So like if you're going to quit smoking, right, it helps to, not have cigarettes in the house, and also to get rid of all of like the peripheral stuff regarding cigarettes. So to get rid of the ashtrays and the lighters and, kind of anything having to do with smoking. You might have to find yourself not hanging out with friends that smoke for a certain period of time because it's too much of a trigger. You're going to have to anticipate going through withdrawal and going through cravings, and you're going to have to relearn how to do some things. So I used to smoke. I smoked for, I don't even know, 15 years, and I quit probably about 10 years ago. So, I had to anticipate. I liked having a drink and smoking. I liked having a cup of coffee and smoking. I liked going out to, bars with friends, and we would smoke and we would dance and so there was like a lot of things, like, my favorite song would come on in the radio and I would smoke. So I had a lot of associations with, this happened, then I would smoke, that I had to cut. And it's not easy, and it kind of takes practice. It takes practice to quit. This is why, on average, a person, tends to leave an abusive relationship 7 times, because quitting oftentimes takes practice. We have to almost kind of go through that cycle where it's like we experience pain, we quit, and then we start up again, and then we're like, oh, right, like this is why this is not working for me. Same with alcoholics, right? So they might have what they think is a rock bottom moment. They get a DUI, they lose their job, and they're okay, I'm done, I'm not drinking anymore. And then after, a month or so goes by, they're like, maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe it's other reasons as to why. So they're like justifying their behavior. Then they have a drink, and next thing they know, they're back to drinking on a regular basis, and it's a problem for them. And then next time around, they're going to keep that up until they experience something that causes them pain. So maybe they get a second DUI, or maybe their spouse leaves them, or they get a speeding ticket, or something. Their 2-year-old child sees them passed out on the floor, and they have whatever it is, that moment where they're like, I need to not be doing what I'm doing. It's the same with going no contact, with going cold turkey from a person. And so anticipating, you're going to miss them, and you're probably going to have this wide range of emotions, and that's very normal. So to try to prepare yourself as much as you possibly can to weather that storm. So support groups are great for that, and letting people know, hey, I'm having a really hard time, I'm missing them today. And then again, kind of planning ahead of time. Okay, I'm gonna go cold turkey like on this person, this relationship. How are you gonna handle the anniversary, or your birthday, or holidays, or weekends, or when are your low times, so you can prepare for that now, and then do something different. So a lot of it's kind of breaking down old habits and patterns, and then building up the new healthier, empowering habits and patterns. And it can take practice, but talking to other people that have been there, done that, support groups is really it helps a lot, because then you're not having to do this alone. It's hard. It's hard to do it's hard to get sober alone. It's hard to quit smoking alone. It's hard to get out of an addictive, abusive relationship alone. And then deciding, okay, this is how I'm most likely going to feel. So when you do feel that way, you're not caught off guard, but then you're also able to try to channel that into something enjoyable. So, okay, so like again, like for cigarettes, you quit smoking, you're like, okay, I'm done doing this, and instead of spending, I don't even know what cigarettes are now a pack. I mean, when I quit, they were like $4 a pack, if even that. It might have been like $3 a pack, but instead of being like, okay, well, I'm going to go buy cigarettes, to take that money and you put it in a jar, and you're like, okay, at the end of this, I'm going to go buy myself something nice. You have some sort of reward set up. So, okay, if I go no contact for 24 hours, or 3 days, or a week, or a month, and kind of what kind of rewards am I going to give myself? And it doesn't have to cost any money. I mean, it can be things like having friends over and having a picnic, or kind of what have you. But okay, back real quick, I was remembering where I was going. We're talking about getting rid of triggers. So like you smoke, get rid of your lighters, get rid of your ashtrays, get rid of things that remind you about smoking. With an abusive relationship, it's the same thing. If changing your environment, so it helps rearranging your furniture, Ideally, moving to a different place if you can. Getting rid of, if they've got stuff at your place, to somehow get rid of it. Either mail it back to them, give it to somebody else, put it out on the porch, donate it, what have you. I mean, don't reopen contact for this. Don't get me wrong. Don't do that. But you can, you know what? You can put it in a box and you can put it up in the attic if you want, but just get it out of your line of sight. If you have certain items of clothing that remind you of your relationship, consider donating those or getting rid of those. So whatever that might be, like if you've got certain pieces of lingerie or, you know, a hat or kind of whatever, do something different. It can help to get different bedding. Getting new sheets can really do wonders. Telling your friends, you know what, I really feel like I need to have like a change the energy in this house party. So change the energy party where people come over, they help you move furniture. You maybe go to an art store and you buy, or maybe you don't, you go to an art store and you get some poster board or some paper and some paints, and you guys all make paintings that night. You have a bottle of wine and you make a bunch of paintings with some friends, and then you put those all up all over your house. Or you make sayings, like affirmations to yourself. You put them all up. This is about you reclaiming power and control over yourself, your life, and your environment. And doing things like that really does make a huge difference to help move forward. So Jody says, she says, I just ordered new sheets. Yeah. Yep, I like that. Elise says, have a ceremony to free yourself from his stuff or things that remind you. I bought new sheets and a mattress pad within hours after he left. Yep. So one of the other things that I did during all of this was I designated the color red to remind myself that I cared about me, that I loved me. And because I had this realization, you know, my whole life fell apart and I really didn't know hardly anybody. And I was living in a state that I didn't know a lot of people in. My ex-husband was military, and we divorced, and then I met Jack, you know, shortly after that. And I didn't have hardly any support when I was going through all of this. And I just felt so incredibly unloved and just alone. And so I designated the color red. I'm like, somebody like I needed somebody to love me and somebody to treat me with respect. And I thought, you know what, that needs to start with me. And so I went out, and I did not have, I mean, really any money. I was so far in debt. It was just awful. But I went out and I took minimal. It's like $20 maybe. And I bought a few red towels and red items. And that's been my color ever since. So it was my way. When I would get out of the shower, I would wrap myself in a red towel, and it was just that reminder of, I love you. I love you, and you matter. And so I had another friend who went through a relationship with a narcissist and a manipulationship with a narcissist, and her color was orange. So she bought herself orange sheets and orange towels and, you know, lots of different an orange journal and lots of different things. So maybe even finding a color that this represents your color of like transformation and strength and moving forward. And then telling your friends, like, this is my color, like purple, whatever you want your color to be. This is my color. And this is my power color. This is my color that I'm going to remind myself that I matter, that I love myself. And ask them if you guys are thinking about getting me a gift at any time for birthdays or holidays, to choose it in this color. And then that's kind of fun too, because then you start filling up your space with other people saying, like, I love you too. Like, this is your color. I know this about you. It's a really fun, awesome way to do that. And, you know, if you can find sheets in that color, or maybe if you can't find sheets, to find a pillowcase. something that is that constant reminder that you matter, that you love you. So Elise's color is turquoise. I like that. Darcy color is green. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah. BJ says, I put our wedding comforter in the dog's kennel. I bought leopard print everything. He hated it on me. It's my favorite. So Jody says, you don't know how much you've helped me. That's awesome, Jody. I'm so glad. I am so glad to hear that. Yeah, Heather says, or get really girly stuff. Yes. And and you can give like your space a makeover, and you can give yourself a makeover. A big thing for me, Jack didn't like when I painted my toenails. And one of the first things I did was I went out and I got a pedicure. So again, like reclaiming your body and being like, you know what? They always hated the way that I, these certain outfit I used to wear, or if I wore my hair a certain way, and to just be like, I'm going to wear my hair that way and I'm going to wear that outfit. And, just kind of do that. Or yeah, they didn't like incense. I love incense. So lighting incense, and, if you want to get everything that's pink and ruffly, then go for it. Or if you're a guy and you're really into sports, and she used to always get on you because you just love football, man, start going out there and hanging up football stuff. Like this is your space. So guys can use this concept too. You just need to figure out how can you make that work for you? Like how can you make it your ultimate man cave? Now that she or he is not around, what is your space? What would that look like? So, yep, I love it. David says, so true, Dana. I wore a full beard and I got out of shape. Now I wear my goatee and went back to working out again. Yeah, and so that's the cool thing, right? So when you are you and you are in shape and you've got a goatee or a full beard or whatever, it's okay to be you. And you're going to attract women because there's lots of women out there, I'm sure, that are like, oh my God, a beard and he's in shape. Like, where do I sign? So those are the kind of women that you want, like women that are like they're looking for you, that are excited. Like that's the kind of guy that I'm looking for, whatever that might be, So, and there's lots of women out there too that like love football or that love barbecuing, or I'm kind of being stereotypical with like stuff guys like, but, there's all different kinds. This is a very big world. There's lots of different people out there, and being yourself full out is the best way to find your people, because the more you are you, and the more confident that you are about that, the more you're going to start attracting other people that are going to be gravitating towards your self-confidence, like your inner light. So, see, there you go. Marie says, I love football and barbecue. There you go. Men, there you go. So, yeah, Rob Jenny says, I love hockey too. Yeah, my friend Heather that I was just talking about, the one of the gifts, amazing gifts. She is gorgeous. She looks like Sandra Bullock. I'm not even kidding. I almost kind of hate her a little bit for this. Not a little bit, a lot. I hate her a lot for this. She is stunningly beautiful, and she has naturally the body of a bikini model. And here's the kicker: she eats like a 15-year-old boy. She eats garbage, like Fritos and Cheetos and Dr. Pepper and cheeseburgers, but she has this amazing body. She's married, so guys, calm down. But she loves football, and she loves games, like internet gaming. and her son are really big into like what is it, there's a game 1944, 1970, I don't know, some sort of like shoot 'em up video game. She loves video games and loves football. And it's so funny because her husband is really not into like any of that, and he just laughs because all these other guys are like, "Oh my god, like you lucked out, like you have," and he's like, "You have no idea how much football this woman watches. Like this is not healthy." Like she like records different games, and she is so into football. It just takes it to a whole another level. So no, it's not 1984. It's some sort of old video game, war game, that where they play that battlefield. It's a battlefield something, 19 something or other. I don't know. So yeah, that's, but she's unapologetically her. I mean, that's her thing. She loves football. So do not bother her during football season. She most likely will not leave the house, and only talk during commercials. Like that's her thing, and that's fine. It might be 1942, Kevin. I think you're right. So everybody is awesome in their own way. Like we all have strengths and weaknesses. So it's kind of just knowing what yours are, and being willing, right, to at least work on weaknesses. But we don't need to change ourselves for anybody. So, well, with that said, I did not realize it has gone on this long. So I'm going to sign off, and you guys take care. Thank you so much for joining me and for all of your great questions. If I didn't get to all your questions, which I know I did not, then please just realize it's me trying. I have a hard time reading and keeping up with the chat and answering everything all at the same time. So I just I do what I can. So it's not that, anything against your question. It's just me and my brain processing capacity. So with that said, you guys have a fantastic night. I do these live streams every single Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They run for 2.5, 3 hours ish. And I do have a support group. I have actually 2 support groups. I'm having major website issues right now, so hopefully that'll be resolved soon. It just doesn't ever end for me. It's just technology. But you can get all of my contact info in the About tab on YouTube. My website is thriveafterabuse.com, and I have a Facebook support group. I have a website support group, but the website support group is not working optimally right now because I'm having website issues. So if you'd like to join, we'd love to have you. And yeah, that's that. So you guys take care. We'll see you next week. Lots of love to you. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care, and I will talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye.